Saturday the 14th of November was the annual UK Festival of Zombie Culture at the Phoenix Arts Cinema in Leicester. As always, there were various zombie authors and artists in attendance plugging their wares, along with various retailers and special effects artists. And there were a great many people who came dressed as zombies themselves. Our host was, as always, Zombie Ed, and the festival kicked off with a screening of Maggie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Quite different to his usual roles, this sees him cast against type as a devout family man living on a farm in the American Midwest. When his daughter contracts a disease that's ravaging the country, turning people into bloodthirsty zombies, the authorities allow him to take her home so the family can say their goodbyes, on the condition that he returns her to quarantine when she finally turns. Now, Maggie was really more of a drama than a horror, with the zombie infection being really more of a subplot, focusing instead on how her friends and family cope with the fact she's succumbing to a terminal illness. It's just that the illness in this case happens to be a zombie virus. Audience opinion was somewhat divided. I personally enjoyed it, although it was a bit of a slowie. Things kicked up a gear for our next film with a screening of Umberto Lenzi's infamous Nightmare City, about fast-moving toxic zombies running amok in Madrid, which was doubling for an unspecified American city. I've always wanted to see this on the big screen, so I really enjoyed this one. However, I was surprised that they decided to screen it in Italian language with English subtitles, as opposed to just using the English language track. Whilst this was a novel experience, the problem was the Italian track was strangely missing the background music from the opening fight scene, which made it less dramatic. Plus, having to read the subtitles meant you weren't really watching the film, as your eyes were constantly being drawn to the bottom of the picture. The biggest surprise though was realising just how many so-called zombie fans at the event clearly hadn't seen this film before, judging by the reaction that the twist ending got. Now, I consider this film to be essential viewing for any self-respecting zombie fan, so I was extremely shocked by just how many people clearly hadn't seen this film before now. The next movie was indie horror TheDarkest Day, in which a young man, played by director Dan Rickard, wakes up on a deserted beach suffering from amnesia, only to find a zombie apocalypse in full swing as he stumbles into town. The film starts a bit slowly as he hooks up with another group of survivors, and they just spend a large portion of the film sitting around the house drinking and listening to dreadful music. But the film kicks up a gear as the military come looking for them, and they end up on the run and having to dodge zombies and armed soldiers alike. Filmed in and around Brighton on a budget of less than £1,000, I must admit that when I went into this I did have fairly low expectations, but as things got going I was quickly won over. I was extremely impressed at what they managed to pull off with such a meagre budget. I certainly wasn't expecting to see Brighton looking like a scene from the Omega Man, or squads of soldiers marching through the streets and military choppers flying overhead. This was apparently achieved with some crafty camera work and some very clever CGI, the quality of which certainly made it look like the film's budget was 10 times more than what it actually was. It also benefited from an effective soundtrack, as I don't think many people realise just how much the incidental music sets these films apart, but I thought the score in this did complement the film very well. Another plus that there was a very intense battle scene towards the end between the soldiers and zombies, which was definitely the high point of the film for me. In fact, it was kind of like a scene from Zulu but with zombies, if you can imagine that. It is a low budget film though, so it does feature a lot of first time actors. The dubbing is perhaps a little off in places, and the zombie makeup isn't exactly up to The Walking Dead standards. It's also a bit slow to begin with, but it comes into its own once the army turns up and the action kicks in. To summarise, I think if the director can put together a film like this on less than £1,000, I'd love to see what he could do with a couple of million. The film is out on UK DVD now, so I'd definitely advise picking this one up. Director and star Dan Rickard and the producer and co-star Simon Drake were in attendance to promote the film and give a Q&A session afterwards. I also managed to have a little chat with them after the show. Footage from both of these will be on my channel shortly. The next film was a bit of a change of pace with the UK premiere of the Aussie horror comedy Me and My Mates vs the Zombie Apocalypse. Now, this one concerns the exploits of a group of engineers that get stuck inside a telephone exchange building when a zombie outbreak occurs. The film's full of typical Aussie humour about drinking, women and playing sports, and has some hilarious fight scenes as the group are forced to fend off the zombie attacks with paintball guns as they try to escape the building when the beer runs out. I thought the film was bloody hilarious and was certainly well received by the audience, so it's definitely worth checking out when the film's released to disc here. In keeping with the comedy horror theme came the next film, Kuti, starring Elijah Wood. In this he plays a substitute teacher who gets more than he bargained for when the youngsters in the school turn into blood-crazed zombies who proceed to start eating the teachers. There's some very politically incorrect scenes in this as the surviving teachers then have to literally bash their way through hordes of zombie children using sports equipment and musical instruments, but it was bloody good fun, and again the audience really loved this one, so it's definitely worth picking up on disc. The last film of the day, Fallen Soldiers, was notably different to the other films at the festival, being more of a period drama. Set in France in the 1800s during the Napoleonic Wars, a British soldier comes across a dastardly plot by the French to resurrect their war dead so that they can send them back out to battle the British once more. The only problem is, if they do this, it will spell certain doom for everyone. An unusual film as it starts with the central character hijacking a carriage, and the story is told in a series of flashbacks as he recounts his story to the occupants. Now, whilst I did enjoy the film, it was a bit of a slow one, again being more of a drama, but it is worth a watch. And that brought the festival to a close for 2015. The UK Festival of Zombie Culture is held every year mid-November at the Phoenix Arts Cinema in Leicester. For more info, check out the following links.